everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you, and we are talking about this important topic once again. Why? Because India is on fire. You hold a passport, Aadhaar card, ration card, electricity bill, PAN card, even a home. Yet, legally speaking, none of these prove your citizenship. Surprised? Yes, and it is deeply troubling also. Recently, the government of India has declared, rather reiterated, that Aadhaar is just identity, not citizenship. So, the PAN, Aadhaar card, or even voter ID may grant access to a particular service, but they have no weightage to legally prove that you are an Indian citizen. But we really do not know what document will actually prove that he or she, you and me, is an Indian citizen. Here is the paradox. Millions carry proof, but they might not be good enough because the system has now decided otherwise. So what's going on in India as far as the democracy is concerned? Bihar's special intensive revision exercise, this is to review the voter list of Bihar. About 65 lakh names, 6.5 million names have been deleted from the Bihar's electoral rolls. It may sound a good exercise of cleaning up, but then if you check the statistics, how many new names have been added? That is puzzling. When the political parties, by their own right, had asked for the names of those 65 lakh voters who are deleted, about 14% to 16% of the total electoral count in Bihar election, upcoming elections of November, the Election Commission was reluctant and even refused to give the voter list and the reason why they were deleted. So the Election Commission was taken to the Supreme Court and transparency was demanded. Finally, the Election Commission had to give away the 65 lakh names and also the reasons why they were deleted. As we understand that a large section of these voters were marked as not recommended by the block level officers, the people responsible to update the voter list and who have the authority to say whether the voter was allowed in the list or not. Now, when the journalists and the politicians asked for scrutiny, it felt initially arbitrary and the work of traditional opposition to oppose anything. But then, when thousands of voters who were marked dead were very much alive, or when thousands of voters who were dead were found to be in the voter list, that's where the suspicion grew. At that point in time, it could have been taken as a mismanagement of the affairs of the Election Commission. But then, when the investigating journalists were charged falsely with FIRs, that's where the suspicion also further grew. Meanwhile, as we spoke in the last discussion, the leader of opposition had pointed out a discrepancy of 16 to 17% votes in just one assembly segment of Karnataka. And to that, the Election Commission has given no accountability, no credible reason, but have been insisting on the statement of leader of opposition as an affidavit, as a statement under oath. Now the argument is that why should the leader of opposition, as good as a shadow Prime Minister of India, make a statement under oath for the data which belongs to Election Commission? So somewhere Election Commission is playing in favor, in collusion of the ruling party and is stonewalling the faults, the flaws that have been now caught in these two exercises. Further interestingly, we also know that the leader of opposition had done the exercise of Mahadevapura assembly segment for 6 months involving 40 people to physically go through the paper voter list. Ideally, the Election Commission should have given electronic copy of the voter list, machine readable, so that the analysis could have been done. But then they were not supplied. Again, a case of stonewalling and being reluctant to the opposition. So it took 6 months for the leader of opposition to come up with this analysis of just one assembly segment. While in rebuttal, the spokesperson of BJP just in 6 days came up with an analysis of at least 5 parliamentary constituencies, which is amounting to roughly 10 to 15 assembly constituencies in just 6 days. So what this means is either the BJP spokesperson is talking about the voter list discrepancies as a false case, or has been provided a machine readable voter list by the Election Commission. So somewhere one can smell, one can be suspicious about the role of Election Commission in the case of voter list fraud, allegedly fraud, both in Bihar as well as in Mahadevapura assembly constituencies. The discrepancy in the voter list had been pointed out in the Maharashtra election, earlier in the Delhi election by the Aam Aadmi Party. And why is it so consequential? Because in Delhi election, as an example, there were 25 seats which were won and lost by a margin of less than 2,000 votes. And altogether, if you see, the ruling party, the Aam Aadmi Party, had lost election, or rather majority, by less than 28,000 votes. If the allegations of voter list fraud in Delhi elections is to be considered of nearly 15%, then the Aam Aadmi Party would have won 50 out of 67 seats. Now, this is all speculation until we do not get the voter list that can be machine readable, so that the necessary investigation and the analysis can be made. So this isn't about political theater. This isn't about Rahul Gandhi versus Narendra Modi. This isn't Congress versus Aam Aadmi Party versus BJP. It is about India. We are talking about this because democracy is not just about right to vote. It's about the trust that your vote counts. It's the trust that my vote counts. But today, the allegations of vote chori, vote theft, are shaking the very foundation of Indian Republic. This is not a political fight. It is your job. It is your future. It is about your retirement savings. It's about the opportunity of the future generation of India. And all this put together is about the credibility of the Indian democracy. If the government is not chosen by the people, but by the manipulation of voter list, then tell me who really runs India. And think beyond Indian borders for the moment. Why should a foreign company invest in India if it believes the government itself is not legitimate? Make in India, which employs millions, now stands on a fragile pillar of international trust. And if this pillar cracks, jobs will start to vanish. And what happens to India's moral voice in the world? Tell me. How can our embassies and our ambassadors stand on the podium of United Nations and demand democracy in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Myanmar, our neighbors? The moral high ground, the moral voice is weakening. How can we now lecture China to uphold the human rights? Therefore, the democracy of India, by any method, is a political issue. It is a bipartisan issue. It does not matter what political opinion you have, what ideology you are following. For now, India is important. The very idea of India is important. And why is the Election Commission a silent spectator? For 75 years, Election Commission had been accountable for its action for having a credible Indian election. World's largest democracy is created by the very institution of Election Commission. But today, that pride is accused of being compromised. Today, the very role of election commissioners is seen as a collusion with the ruling BJP. And the worst case is in 2023, after 75 years, like I said, this parliament had passed a law which gives complete legal immunity to the election commissioners. while all these 75 years the election commissioners were accountable. So why suddenly this protection, this shield is being created? Unless something sinister is being planned. So if you look at the bigger picture, the pattern is repeating itself. Delhi, Karnataka, Bihar, Maharashtra, and the fingers naturally are pointing towards a friendship, a bond, a collusion, a suspicion between the ruling party and the election commission. And this is not just paranoia. This is not sour loser. Look at the neighbors. Let's learn from the history, from the geopolitical history of our neighbors. The very fact that when election commissions have become puppets to the ruling party, as in case of Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, the country has slid into anarchy, has slid into poverty. And as Indians, we do not want that. India does not want to follow the path of failing democracy. And that is why this frustration, this anger, this suspicion is arising not with few, with billion voters of this country. And therefore it must be addressed right away. If the cricket matches are fixed, would anybody still watch the World Cup? That's exactly what is happening to our elections. The election commission must come out clean. India has survived famines, partitions, wars, global crisis. But then all through there has been complete faith in democracy. Therefore, the step forward, the way forward is to create transparency. All political parties, whether ruling or not, have to come together in order to create accountability. And more importantly, we need to audit the 2024 elections. There are calls from the opposition parties to nullify the 2024 elections. That is such a shame for the world's largest democracy. There are calls for the Prime Minister to resign on grounds of electoral fraud. Allegedly, this is a shame. The journalists who are investigating into the Bihar voter list review, they are being slapped with cases, legal cases. That's a shame. So there has to be a political unity, bipartisan unity, in order to fix the problem of voter list. Because if votes are stolen, our future is stolen. With those thoughts and concerns and frustration, I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, and dutifully ask questions. Bye for now.
You are listening to 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Broadcasting from the Dundrum Town Centre. This is Dublin South FM.